Hi, blog number 3. Welcome to week number 3, where we will go back in time to the mid-80s, when Lee Haney was the king of bodybuilding, and he'd won his first couple of Mr. Olympia titles, eventually going on to win 8 consecutive titles. Yes, I'm sure this is probably before many of you were even born, but it was a golden era for the sport and the beginning of my journey within it. This week's title is called The World of the Gym, a new daunting but inspiring experience. Let me start by quoting the Stoic philosopher Seneca on his words of getting started on something new in life. The fool, with all his other faults, has this also. He is always getting ready to live. Seneca to his friend Lucilius. I was around 12 years old when I got my first set of dumbbells. I remember it well as my father had picked them up from the town and he had to carry them home back to the car before driving back with them. He came back with very shaky arms and not very happy, but we'd look back and laugh at that. Those dumbbells were something I really loved. I was a martial artist at the time, and I'd always admired the physique of Bruce Lee, and I'd also got hold of a book called Dynamic Tension by Harry Wong, which advocated the use of tensing your own muscles within certain movements as a means by which to increase muscle size. It was great to feel the muscles working, but I think I knew that to build muscle, I had to use a stress that my muscles were not able to cope with, thereby forcing some type of adaptation. I'd also seen photos of Bruce Lee using weights, dumbbells, barbells, and weight machines, so I was keen to develop a lean muscular physique, as it never felt right to see great martial artists who were in terrible physical shape. It seemed almost a contradiction in their teachings. I used the dumbbells religiously every day for over a year before an older friend, he was in his 20s, who belonged to the same martial arts club as I did, invited me along to the gym where he trained. Now my friend, he was built, and yet he was also a great martial artist, so I knew the two were quite compatible, to a certain degree anyway. We met up at the Brunel Gym and Spa in the town centre of Swindon for my very first real gym workout, and he showed me around the exercises, the machines, and he introduced me to some of the other members who he knew. The old Brunel gym has long since gone now, but in its time was the place to train in the Swindon area, with the owner flying in some of the top American pros of the 80s while I was there. I'll tell you more about them a little bit further on. When I went first to this professional gym, I was terrified. I was a tall 14-year-old kid, looked older than I was. I was lean, quite skinny, a little bit of muscle. But to venture into what was a completely new world filled with men and women who looked sensational and huge, well, that's how it felt to me anyway, was a very scary prospect. So I know exactly what it's like for new members of any club or gym to feel uncomfortable and intimidated when going into an environment like that for the first time. What I found though was that most people couldn't care less that I was there. They weren't staring at me as if I didn't belong. They weren't even looking at me at all. They didn't care, and people don't. All those fears that most people have are always inside themselves. The people there, they were too busy with their own training, and the ones that did speak to me were very welcoming and friendly. I felt great. Not only feeling comfortable in the gym, but loving the feeling of the weights on my muscles and pushing my body to limits I just didn't have the means to before. Those old dumbbells I was repping for 40, 50 reps at a time before I would even feel slightly a burn on the muscle. So to pick up a weight and feel the muscles tighten and burn and get pumped at around 10 or 15 reps was wonderful feeling. The advice people kept saying to me over and over was, don't go too heavy, aim for 10 to 12 reps each set. It was great advice Not just for a still growing body, remember I was only 14, but for someone who was still learning the basic movements. It gave me a chance to learn how to do each exercise properly and practice the movement hundreds and thousands of times before I began to use heavier weights. Basically, any resistance, when you start, will produce adaptation and growth as long as you're eating enough. So the advanced guys and gals in the gym really helped me out back then. And yes, there were plenty of women in the gym back then. It was the period of Rachel McLeish, Carla Dunlap and Gladys Portuguese. They looked great. I was a 15-year-old boy in this gym with huge guys and strong women who still very much looked like women. Drug use wasn't seen in the women's side of the sport at that level, and even at the pro level, not until later, or if there was any, it was minuscule. Like Arnold said, I was in heaven. And I was at the start of what would be a long, arduous, but essential journey towards my purpose, whatever that may have been turned out to be. Just start your journey, no matter how scared, insecure, afraid of failure, no matter how far off it may seem. Listen to what the Stoics had to say about beginning work. Epictetus said about the Greek mythological hero Heracles, or more commonly known as Hercules. What would have become of Hercules, do you think, if there'd been no lion, no hydra, stag or boar, and no savage criminals to rid the world of? What would he have done in the absence of such challenges? Obviously, he would have just rolled over in bed and gone back to sleep. So by snoring his life away in luxury and comfort, he would never have developed into the mighty Hercules. And even if he had, what good would it have done him? What would have been the use of those arms, that physique and that noble soul, without crisis or conditions to stir him into action? Epictetus discourses. Suffice to say, it didn't take me long to get hooked on going to the gym. I began by going twice a week and then 3 times a week, a Monday, a Wednesday and a Friday. And I was soon known to everyone in there as the young kid who was now a member of the gym family. For a young man, being accepted into an older, more mature, more worldly group of people who also happened to be respected by everyone in town was a good feeling. And I began to learn a few of life's lessons in there. For example, if you shave in a sauna, your face will stay smooth for about a day longer than if you shave just in a bathroom. About relationships, how to get along with people, and to know when it's appropriate to approach someone and when it's not, i.e. when they're about to squat 600 pounds. The basic rules of gym etiquette were taught to me very early on and are very simple, and they're common sense. Although new gym goers may not always be aware of some of them, having not experienced how gyms run at their smoothest. So here's a short list of basic gym etiquette or rules that everyone should follow, no matter how experienced or not you are. These apply to everybody. And sadly, aren't the gym rules written down in most commercial gyms today? Number 1, be courteous and polite to all members. That means new members as well as experienced gym rats. Number 2, do not hog one piece or several pieces of equipment at any one time. If you train in such a way that you'll be using a machine or bench for more than 15 or 20 minutes, then offer people the chance to work in with you between your sets. Number 3, use a towel on any machine or bench that you're sitting or lying on. No one wants to sit or lie in your pool of sweat or spot erupted pus. Horror story alert. Yes, when I used to train with a world champion powerlifter, his back was so covered in spots, huge red, ready to explode zits, that whenever he would get off the bench, it would need disinfecting before it would be safe to lie down on it to do my set. But yes, he did bring a towel and thereby prevent the problem. I must do a full blog about that man one week. He was a great powerlifter who I spent years working with on the doors and trained with on a number of occasions when either he wanted to get some extra volume in, or I wanted to focus on a power workout. Rule number 4. Try not to walk in front of someone performing an exercise, when possible. This isn't always easy or possible, but when someone is really focused on doing an intense set of curls with 60-pound dumbbells, the last thing they want is for any movement directly in front of them or in their peripheral vision to distract them from their set. Number 5, do not talk to someone when they're in the middle of a set, or at the start of their set, or at the end of a set, ever. This is a critical one. When someone, especially someone who is engaged in high intensity training, is performing a set, particularly their one working set to failure, any distraction or influence from the outside, someone talking to them, bumping into them, or even being too close to them and distracting their peripheral vision, is likely to cause serious injury, possibly to the person doing the distracting. No, seriously, this is a dangerous practice, and not just because you are likely to ruin their one opportunity that they had that week to stimulate growth in an optimal way, but it's dangerous because they will be lifting weights that, to them, stress their bodies to their maximum capacity, and any loss of concentration can result in physical damage, ligament, muscular, or tendon. When someone is training, respect their zone and personal space, and likewise, everyone will respect everyone else's. I remember talking with Dorian and Kenny one day, and we all agreed that there could literally be a bomb explode outside of Temple Gym and it wouldn't break our focus or concentration at all. But if anyone had been too close to us or tried to speak to us, that was a no-go zone. Hence why we trained before the gym officially opened at midday. So please, when someone is obviously training near you, just respect their space, their focus, and you'll be respected yourself for doing so. Number 6, put your weights away. Or leave any piece of equipment as you found it. Or better still, if you found it loaded up with weights, do the decent thing and unload it for others. So perhaps someone less strong than you to use afterwards. And then find out who left it in the mess and put them down a peg or two. I know it will surprise you to know that I've had to, on occasion, explain this gym rule in crystal clear clarity to people who should know better. They always got the message. Another good one is to tell them, remember your mother and father don't work here, so clean up after yourself. Put your weights away. Or if you're big and strong enough to lift them up, then you're big and strong enough to put them away. Yes, I'll admit it. When I trained with Dorian, we would wait until the workout completely finished before putting everything back in its place. We would set everything up before the workout began and then unload everything right at the end. Things like dumbbells, they were replaced in their right spots when we had finished the set, or depending on when we had regained consciousness. But all the plates would be left to the end. It didn't affect anybody else as there were no other members training when we trained, so it affected nobody. Rule number 7. This isn't really a rule, just a piece of advice and common sense. Some gyms have other rules, such as not making noise, grunting, well, even sweating some gyms. So if you're going to train to produce maximum results in the minimum time and produce results that others will simply not believe possible, then make whatever noise you have to make to get the job done. Scream, yell, grunt, shout abuse at your partner if that's what motivates them. Just do what you have to do to get it done. Now, this doesn't mean that gives you a free pass to shout at the end of every rep if you're squatting 1 plate aside. But put 6 plates aside and go ass to grass, and you'll find that sometimes you need an outlet of aggression and air release, which sometimes comes with noise to get the job done. And experienced bodybuilders know when your screams of pain are real or not. So don't try and fool anybody pretending it's needed when it's not. Sweat is a natural product of your body trying to cool itself when its core temperature is being raised. Therefore, if you giving your all to your workout, your body will sweat. It's not bad, it's natural. Simply make sure you use a towel to wipe down any equipment, as has already been said. Number 8, wear workout appropriate clothing to train in. If you've just come in from your job on the construction site, don't wear the same muddy boots to the gym to train in and leave a trail for others to clean up after you. I don't advise wearing jeans to the gym. Get a pair of shorts, then you'll have to train legs, or sweatpants, or even the old style clown baggies that I used to wear in the 80s and 90s. If you enjoy wearing clothes that show off your physique, then that's your prerogative. But before you strip down too much, make sure that you are properly warmed up first. And also don't be upset if others don't look at you or don't give a damn that you are showing off all that you've got. If they're really hardcore trainers, they won't care what you look like or what you're wearing. The only exception to this is the wearing of shorts if you also wear boxer shorts. Obviously, when you lie down flat on a bench, you're likely to let everybody see parts of you that should remain hidden. No one wants to be able to tell what religion you are that way. Keep it tucked away if you're a man. Seriously, I've seen this happen so many times over the years, it amazes me. Is it lacking common sense, or do these people just don't care what they let hang out? Learning should never be limited to just the gym. Try and keep learning new skills all your life, in all aspects of your life. It's a great way of increasing your knowledge, and who knows what new ideas you may come up with. Now, this is what Seneca had to say about teaching and learning. This is what you should teach me: how to be like Odysseus, how to love my country, wife and father, and how, after suffering shipwreck, I might keep on sailing on course to those honourable ends. Notice the common thread in these Stoic quotes. It's that of honour, virtue and integrity. As you can see, most of the rules are common politeness, but some things like walking in front of others may not be so obvious to someone who doesn't understand training and is new to the gym environment. I quickly learnt the rules. If I made a mistake, I was normally given a friendly word in the ear, but there wasn't much to it. Get in there and enjoy it. I was surprised how the biggest guys and the best shaped ladies were normally the very most polite out of everyone. The biggest jerks, and still to this day you'll see, are the ones who think they're big, but are just soft, fat doughboys who'll never achieve anything. And they know it. Therefore, they feel so insecure that they have to try and raise themselves up by bringing down others. Now, when many women have expressed the same thing to me with regards to women's behaviours to other women. The most secure women are the ones who lift their fellow sisters up. And the ones who are most likely to gossip and say stupid things about others are the least secure and have to find alternative means to feel good about themselves. The trouble is, it never does. They always still feel bad about themselves. It would make life so much better if those with such insecurities knew what Marcus Aurelius told us. Enough of this miserable whining life. Stop monkeying around. He also told us, don't argue what a good man should be one. And obviously that applies to all women too. Don't worry about what a good woman should be, just be one. Anyway, it was this feeling of camaraderie and family that I was experiencing that was not only new to me, but something that I loved. It was the Iron family, the brotherhood and sisterhood of Iron, and it still exists today. And although not quite as strong, sadly, it is something that you will feel here at the home of bodybuilding, philosophy, literature and mythology. You are now with your family, what I like to call my Iron Stoics family. Anyway, back to my early days at Brunel Gym. I'd work out, I'd take a sauna, have a chat with the big guys in there, and listen and learn about their training, about their lives, and their commitment. And then one day I walked in to see something I'd never seen before. I saw a physique that was beyond anything I had ever witnessed except for in magazines. And even then, in the flesh, this seemed bigger than what was humanly possible. There in the gym was Jeff King, a professional bodybuilder from America. Jeff was the biggest human I'd ever seen. And then within the next 2 years, I would also meet Mike Quinn, Lee Haney, Bill Kazmaier, and champion powerlifters. But up to that point, I'd seen nothing like this man. He was a freak. His legs were not twice the size of mine, they were 4 times the size of mine. His neck was so wide and thick, no one would have been able to get their hands around it to strangle him, even if he had let them. His chest, back and arms were just swole. They were huge. I watched him train legs and was in absolute awe. I'd never seen anyone train that hard, that heavy before. And I began to realize that what I had thought of as the big, strong guys in the gym were very much just big fish in a tiny pond. What I was seeing here was a shark in the Pacific Ocean, the real deal. And I liked it. In fact, something inside me already was changed, and somewhere I knew that was what I wanted, but a Paul Baxendale version of it. He would train that huge neck of his with a head brace, a piece of equipment that was common back then. You strapped it around your head and you could attach weights to the chain at the bottom and then lift your neck up and down with control to develop the neck muscles. He also shrugged ungodly amounts of plates on the barbell placed on the squat rack. He'd incline bench 3-4 plates aside with ease, literally just a warm-up. It was a whole new world. The gym owner deserves a blog all to himself, and I may do one eventually, but I don't want to say anything, even in jest, that may upset anybody. Well, maybe just a little bit. As there are so many stories about what he got up to in and out of the gym, the people he upset and the consequences of those actions, most not violent or nasty, just humorous and funny. One that I will recount for you, as it makes me smile even today, is when he decided that he himself would compete in a bodybuilding contest. Now, he trained, but not seriously, and not with any heart or passion. But he must have looked in the mirror and seen something that no one else in the gym was seeing. But he sent off his registration form and he entered the local show. Well, let's see what he had. Now, I'm not the one to criticize anybody competing who does their best and prepares well, who is just a beginner. But this was a 40-plus-year-old man that had been telling others how to train, how to eat for years. And he was also quite an unsavory character, getting involved in not quite legal exploits. He loved to think that he was the top man in the gym. And to be fair, he brought over many great athletes for us all to enjoy. However, he just shouldn't have gone anywhere near a bodybuilding stage. I went to see the show wondering how he was going to look like. As I really wondered, maybe he was hiding something under his clothes after all. Maybe he really did know how to prep. And maybe he would come in and shock everybody. Well, shock everyone he did, but not for the reasons he was hoping for. As his class was called out and they all walked out to the line, a guy just in front of me shouted out, "Hey buddy, the swimming pool's just down the road." And the place just erupted into laughter. People weren't generally mean at shows. In fact, people were very supportive. But this was just one of those occasions where he'd shouted out what everyone else in the audience had been thinking. So the place just fell about. To be fair, he took it with a smile, and he knew he'd made a poor choice that day. So don't let this worry you. If anybody I personally knew wasn't ready for a show, let alone would look silly, I would tell them long before they did it. Again, honesty is always the best policy. He probably had so-called friends telling him he was huge, ripped and on. With friends like that, you know, who needs enemies? As I said, I don't like to talk ill of anybody. One of the lessons I learned from philosophical reading is, again, as Aurelius tells us, it is possible to curb your arrogance to overcome pleasure and pain, to rise above your ambition, and to not be angry with stupid and ungrateful people. Yes, even to care for them. One last story before I call it a day with this week's blog, as I must be boring the life out of you by now. Jeff King. Jeff stayed with the owner for about a month, so we got to see him train very often. And it was obvious he had a show coming up. He was training, he was dieting, and he was doing cardio. He did half an hour of cardio every day, and he always did it on a bicycle. Never on a piece of cardio equipment. Not that much cardio equipment was in the gyms back then anyway. They just didn't exist. Anyway, he always asked the owner to follow him in the car when he went out on the bicycle. Now, the reason he got the owner to follow him was because he would do half an hour and half an hour only to the second. As soon as that half hour was done, he dismounted and stopped. No matter where he was, he would stop. So he got the owner to follow him so he could be collected, put the bike in the car, and be driven back home. So he had done his precise 30 minutes he had allotted for his cardio that day. Now, I'm not sure even to this day whether he really felt that strongly about his half-hour cardio limit, or whether or not he was just winding up the gym owner. I don't know. But he certainly made us all laugh and wonder if the guy was nuts, obsessive, or just having a good laugh. Anyway, till next time, get nasty, train like a beast, and remember, there are always 3 more reps in you. Now let me leave you today with the words of Seneca, who had this to say about being noble, something I believe we should all do our very best to be at all times, on all days. Nothing is noble if it's done unwillingly or under compulsion. Every noble deed is voluntary. Now, if you don't recognize any of the names mentioned during the blog post this week, just go over to my Instagram account, where I will post up photos of all the men and the women mentioned during each weekly blog post in my daily Instagram posts. I hope you've enjoyed this week's trip down bodybuilding memory lane and enjoy the photos of the great champions on my daily posts on Instagram. I'll see you next week for blog post number 4. Will it be another trip to Temple Gym, or perhaps another story from another part of my career? Perhaps let me know who you'd like to hear about, as it's likely I've met them and possibly have a story or two about them. Thank you for watching and listening. Goodbye.